So good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome, and again, thank you for coming and joining today for my last teaching talk of the year. Um, so yeah, again, I like to start as usual with a short, mindful breathing meditation exercise. Yeah, they knew you were the director. Yeah. So make yourself relaxed, comfortable. And as you inhale and exhale, observe it mindfully and be aware of that. And keeping your mind or the focus on the breath. And once your mind is settled down, quiet, and try to generate good intentions or motivation for being here. And we can try to reflect. As long as we are not free from the karma and afflicted emotions, we will always continue to experience some disappointments, dissatisfied, unhappy all the time. There's always something that we are not fully happy. There's always something that bothers us. Even we want certain things to go in our way, even with the best intentions, and even we try our best to make things happen the way we see, that is helpful, meaningful, beneficial. We cannot achieve them all the time. Sometimes we achieve something, sometimes we cannot. So we cannot accomplish or achieve what we want on individual level, on collective level. And time to time, again and again, we encounter things that we don't want to see, things that, or experience situations that we wish we don't have to encounter, that we don't have to face it. But reality is despite we don't want to see, despite trying our best not to encounter them, the fact and reality is that we will continue to face them again and again in our life, not just one time. And we have experienced throughout our life that kind of situation again and again. It's not something new. And it will continue to, again, in the future, so as long as we are in samsara, as long as we are not free from the karma and those afflictive emotions, it will continue to happen again and again. Never ending. Therefore, if we don't want to be disappointed, unhappy, bitter, upset, frustrated, dissatisfied, either with ourselves, either with the society that we live in, either with others, then we have to work with our own mind to purify and clear all the karma and those disturbing negative emotions. If we are unable to do that, if we don't do that, then there's no end to disappointment. There's no end to bitterness. There's no end to, feeling discouraged. All of that. Therefore, the purpose of my life is to reduce and eliminate all the karma, contaminated karma, and especially all the disturbing negative emotions. And that is the purpose of listening to the teachings. That is the purpose of studying, reflecting, contemplating, meditating on the Dharma for that purpose. And we need to apply the teachings and practice and meditate even more when in such difficult, challenging times. As the Katamba Master says, how good practice, how good is our practice, it will show when we face difficult and challenging situations and how will we respond to that. When things are not going well, the way we want, the way we wish to go, when we face pain, suffering, challenges, difficulties, if we respond with ordinary, normal beings, then it's a clear sign that we need to work more harder to our practice. It means we haven't really put so much effort into the practice. It's a reminder to us that I need to contemplate, meditate, and practice more. On the other hand, even in such difficult situation, if we are able to respond, not like ordinary beings, but more positively, in a more virtuous way, without being too much bitter, upset, angry, without being too strong, intense disappointment, frustration, and so forth, then it is a sign that our practice has some effect and success. Our practice meditation has been effective to a certain level. And the whole purpose of reducing those afflictive emotions and cultivating, improving those positive state of mind, such as true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, wisdom, and so forth, is not only just to find our own inner peace and ultimate happiness, but also that we can be greatest help and benefit each and every sentient beings. Therefore, in order to liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering and cause of suffering, and to ultimate inner peace and happiness, I must achieve my highest potential, the fully awakened state. And to achieve that fully awakened state, I must engage in the path by cultivating true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom, and engage in the bodhisattva practice, such as six perfections. And to be able to do that, we need to be reminded of those practices over again and again until we perfected them. For that very reason, I'm going to listen to the teachings. And not only listen, but trying to contemplate, reflect, meditate, and integrate in our everyday life. Not that we listen here, get inspired, and the moment we leave this building, the moment you are at home, then you forget everything. Okay?
Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. Sangye chodang sogi chodnam la changchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chonyen ge pe sonam gi drola pincho sangye druparsho sangye chodang sogi chodnam la changchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi Dagi chonyen gepe sonam gi drola panchir sangye druparsha. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Anje duje nye zone, tawa tanje bangpe se, tampe chunye tunje me, kodam de la cha tsa lo. So, beginning of this year or these sessions, we started this particular text by the Third Dalai Lama, Essence of the Refined Gold, the title of that book or text. And the subject is the gradual path to enlightenment. And in that, there are mainly 3 chapters, practice on initial scope practice, middle scope practice, and great scope practice. And we are in sections on the third chapter, which is the practice of great scope. And within that, he explained about the meditations, how to cultivate true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind. That part we finished. And next, once you have cultivated that awakening mind of the bodhicitta, then how the practitioners should engage into the bodhisattva's conduct or the practice through practice such as 6 paramita or perfections. And with that, the first practice is the perfections or the paramita of generosity, which we talked about last week. And today we go through the second one, the paramita of moral discipline or ethical or moral discipline. Yeah, maybe let me kind of read that a little bit first. So again, in terms of page number 25, how to train in the perfection of ethical conduct. You must attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So, enlightenment or fully awakened state is the spiritual ultimate goal for a Mahayana practitioner. And why should anyone who is on the Mahayana practice, achieve that fully awakened or fully enlightened state? The reason is in order to benefit all sentient beings, in order to help sentient beings to be free from their suffering and cause of the suffering, and for them to achieve true inner peace and happiness. For that purpose, why do you need to be fully enlightened? The more enlightened you become, the more you are able to help others. The less enlightened you are, the less you are able to help. It doesn't mean you cannot be helpful. It doesn't mean you cannot do something good for others. It doesn't mean you cannot benefit to others. But the help, the benefit that you are able to do others will be very limited, very small. But once you become fully enlightened, the benefit, the help that you bring to sentient beings is limitless, unbelievable. Because you are not trying to help them only to solve temporarily the problem, suffering itself, but you will be able to help them to overcome the root of those pain and the root of those suffering. And when someone is able to work with that, then they are able to free from all the pain, suffering permanently. At the moment, the help we are able to provide is very limited, for temporary or one particular situations. And again, more help needed. Again, more, and it's kind of never ending. And so that is why, yeah. Okay. In order to do so in order to, attain the fully enlightened state for the sake of all sentient beings, so that is in order to do so, maintain an attitude having the qualities of mindfulness, introspections, conscientiousness, humility, modesty, and so forth, and practice the 3 types of ethical conduct. So, in the bodhisattva practice or moral discipline or ethical discipline or conduct, and there are 3 levels of practice on that. And in order to practice and maintain the practice and to improve and perfect those practice. Of course, also you need to practice. And through practice, you are able to develop the practice. And once you are able to develop practice, you have to maintain it because you could lose the practice if you don't maintain, continue. And you might be able to maintain, but if you don't continue to practice, you might not be able to progress and improve better and better in that practice, and to be able to perfect and complete that practice. And to do that, then there's certain, factors of practice that are essential tools for that, and that is such as the mindfulness and introspections. Those are the primary kind of tool to be able to, engage into the ethical contact or the moral discipline, and to be able to perfect and complete. Even though, we have the wish to not to hurt and harm others. Even though we have the wish to be help and benefit to others, or at least not hurt and harm others, or engage in any actions through mentally, verbally, or physically that could hurt and harm others, and even oneself. But despite that, sometimes we engage in those actions. Action that is harmful to yourself. Action that is harmful to others. And if we check when do we engage into those actions, sometimes at the very beginning we don't know those are harmful actions. That's hurting someone, that is harming someone, or that is hurting yourself or harming yourself. Sometimes we are ignorant about that, not knowing about that. That is one of the causes why we engage in such actions. Unhealthy, unskillful action that hurts and harm either others, oneself, or both. Sometimes we are not ignorant about that. Sometimes we are not ignorant about that. We know such behavior, such action is harmful, but still we continue. And that is because a lot of time we don't have the mindfulness, introspection mind. We have already engaged into that action, and we are not even aware that you are engaged in that actions. You are already feeling bitterness, anger, and you are not even aware that you are angry. You are not even aware that you are bitter, only to realize much more later. Or, we have used some kind of harsh speech to someone that hurts others, but sometimes you are not even aware that actually you are using that harsh, hurtful speech. And because we don't have the mindfulness at that moment. We are not mindful of our speech, our thoughts or emotion in that moment. We are not mindful, and we don't use our introspection, checking time to time, investigating. What is going in my thought now, time to time. Am I having some positive thought? Am I having some negative thoughts? Am I feeling angry? Is anger arising in my mind, or compassion arising in my mind? So whatever different state of mind, emotions, thoughts, feeling that might be arising, checking. We need to do that introspections, checking time to time. How am I using my speech? Am I using gently in a virtuous way? Am I using in an unkind way? How am I expressing myself physically? Am I expressing physically in more subdued way? Subdued way, that might make that person happy, with smile, gentleness, feeling that person, inspiring that person, making that person happy, feeling that person secure, or am I, expressing physically where it make that person's disturbed, just by your physical appearance, the way you express is that person's, disturb that person's mind, why is he acting that way? Why is he behaving that way? Why is his face look so angry? So, so again, so again, checking time to time, introspection mind is checking time to time, our physical expression of behavior, speech, and mind. And then mindfulness and being aware of them, being observing those things and being aware of that. So those are the two main tools to be able to practice, maintain, and complete and perfect the practice of moral ethical discipline. So that is here, and being careful or consciousness is or careful, practicing the humbleness, and so those are the qualities that we need to cultivate. Those are the positive qualities that is beneficial, helpful to ourselves, as well as helpful. When you have those qualities, it also helps other people's, people around you. And especially these are, those practices are essential. Those practices are very essential to practice and perfect the three types of ethical conduct. So what are those three practice of ethical conduct? The first one is the ethical conduct of abandoning destructive actions with which even under the fear of death you do not commit unwholesome deeds. So it is, restraining or reframing or avoiding from engaging into unwholesome misdeeds. And unwholesome misdeeds are the actions that bring suffering to either to oneself, others, or both, bringing suffering to one of the living beings, one of sentient beings, So, and so, such as on a gross level, the Buddha kind of contends into 10 on a gross. It doesn't mean everything's included there, but on gross level, avoiding or restraining or reframing from, physically harming others, verbally harming others, mentally, indirectly harming others, oneself. So in term of physical, then taking the life of others, avoiding taking the life of others. So, and then avoiding, taking the things that doesn't belong to you, would belong to others, stealings, and avoiding engaging in sexual misconduct. That means, engaging in the sexual activities with someone's wife, husband, minorities, So those, because then by engaging such, then we break, hurt and harm the families, break up their relationship, and through that bring so much pain and sufferings. So and in terms of speech, we try to restrain, avoid from, telling lies, engaging in a harsh speech, engaging in divisive speech, and engaging in meaningless idle gossips, that just increase your delusions, that just increase your attachment, your anger, your ignorance, your pride, and so forth, and then mentally, avoiding covetousness, wanting, greediness, covetousness, wanting more, not being, when you see someone's success, someone's happiness, someone's virtues, instead of being happy for them to have that, instead, not being happy, and you wish that I had that one and not that person's, that covetousness, and avoiding ill will feelings, harsh ill will feeling to harm, to hurt someone, and the wrong view. So those are the what we call 10 unwholesome actions or non-virtuous actions, and you try to avoid them, and then not only you try to avoid them, you try to engage in the 10 virtuous actions, which are the opposite of those 10 unwholesome actions. And it is not only avoiding, it's instead of taking life, you save lives. Instead of stealing, you practice generosity, giving. Instead of engaging in sexual misconduct, you try to practice being honest, faithful. Instead of avoiding, instead of engaging in the lie, then you try to be truthful with your speech. Instead of harsh speech, you try to engage in a gentle, compassionate speech. Instead of divisive speech, you try to engage in a speech that brings harmony, instead of divisive, And if there is individual or group who are already divided, instead of through your speech making them more divided, you try to engage in speech that bring them together. So again, those are important for us to be aware when we engage in the discussions. Someone talk about bad about that person because there is some divisions, or certain group talk about bad about other group. And then sometimes we add up more things. We add up more things that make them even more distant. Instead of doing that, we try to talk something good, positive, that can help them to, if they are already not divided, to keep them together, harmonious. If there is some divisions, to help them to reconcile, speech that help them to bring together. And as Buddha said in the Vinaya, the cause of the happiness is the harmony of the Sangha members. Harmony is crucial. And that's the same in family, isn't it? If there is no harmony, disharmony in family, everyone who is part of that family will experience pain and suffering. You know, and same in any organizations, and definitely same in Sangha. You know, if there's a disharmony, then everyone get affected and unhappy. If there is harmony, everyone's more happy. The same as a country, as a world. You know, and instead of idle gossip, then we try to engage into a speech that is meaningful. And the meaningful speech is something that, you know, that helps to increase our practice, that helps to reduce those afflictive emotions instead of increasing them. You know. And then instead of, you know, covetousness, practicing contentment, you know, covetousness like more like greediness, wanting that this more and more, but being happy, satisfied, and content with what you have. Happiness in the inside, not from outside. If you are content with yourself, you might not have a lot, but you will be a very happy person. If your mind is not content, you might be millionaire, billionaire, still you are a very unhappy person. And it's not something kind of philosophical, something complicating. We can observe people around us in the world. We see so many people, different part of the world, in small villages where they are so little, where their survival sometimes just rely on the weather each year, because that's all they have. But in generally, they are quite happy people. Happy, generous, despite having little, supporting each other's sense of community, sense of taking care of each other's, helping each other's. And then we see, you know, in our world, you know, people who have so much, you know, 100,000s, millions, billions, and still you can see with their behavior and their observations and the way they say things, the way they do things, the way they express, very unhappy. Very unhappy. You can sense that. So the happiness doesn't come from outside, from the external objects. True happiness comes from inside within. And when we are able to practice this sense of contentment, then that's when you start to find inner peace, inner happiness. You know, then you don't feel you have to chase and run after things all the time. And you don't have to feel that you don't feel unhappy if you don't get this, that, all different things, external, internals, you know. So that was where instead of covetousness, practice contentment. Instead of ill will feeling, practice loving kindness, compassion, the virtues. Instead of wrong view, practice the right view. You know, the right view of law of cause and effect, and the right view of the ultimate nature of things, the right view of the impermanent nature of conditioned phenomena, you know, the right view of, you know, the understanding the nature of samsaras and so forth, you know. So that is the first ethical conduct, okay? And second here, it says the ethical conduct of practicing virtues which is the basis of furthering your practice of six perfections. So next is the practice of, here we are talking about, bodhisattvas, ethical or moral conduct or disciplines. And so when we engage in any kind of bodhisattva, such practice, the main thing that you try to refrain from, avoid from, is having too much selfish attitude, self-centeredness. That is something you try to refrain from by being influenced by too strong selfishness, self-centeredness. And so you try to avoid that on the basis of trying to avoid that, and then you try to engage into other virtues, all other form of virtues, practice, all the practice to that helps to purify negative karmas, afflictive emotions, obscurations, all those different practice that help to create the conducive conditions, all the different practice to create the merit or the conducive condition for our spiritual growth, and also to be able to help others. Merit, when we talk about merit, because you often hear that, and you all see that often in, and sometimes I think people have kind of misunderstanding about that words or terms. The way we have to understand merit is a positive energies, virtuous energy that is conducive conditions for our practice, for our spiritual growth, conducive conditions that we need to be able to be help and benefit to others. If you don't have those conducive conditions, even if you want to help, even if you want to benefit, you don't have those resources, tools to be able to help and benefit. And to have all those resources and the tools to be able to benefit others out of that compassion, you need the conducive conditions. And so those are that come through the merit, what we call conducive conditions, the positive energies that support and help. And all other form of virtues, the Dharma study, reflections, contemplations, meditation, different form of meditation practice, all of those, engage in all those different form of virtues, all different form of virtues on the basis of that moral discipline, of restraining, reframing from that selfish attitude, self-centeredness. And as he said, then that practice is the, basis for furthering your practice of six perfections, When you are able to avoid the self-centeredness, selfish attitude, when you are able to and then engage in other virtues, then all this become the foundations or, to become a foundational basis to improve and the other perfections of the other five perfections, from the six perfections and all other bodhisattvas practices. And third one, founded on the above two, the ethical contact of working for benefit of sentient beings. So once you have the practice of the ethical discipline that restrain from engaging in unskillful, unwholesome action that hurt and harm oneself and others. On top of that, then you try to refrain from selfish attitude, and then engage in a different practice of virtues. On the basis of those foundations, then you go further to help and benefit sentient beings. So how within those three practice of moral discipline, how early one helps to the next, support to the next, and the next and the first and second support to the third ones, to be able to. And of course, in the sutra and in the Lamrims, they describe about 11 different ways of helping and benefiting sentient beings. But of course, those 11 ways of it are not just kind of what you call. It's not only way to help. It just gives some examples of how you can help and benefit sentient beings. So again, not everything, every action that we can help and benefit is not included necessarily within those lists of 11. It's just giving a list that they found in the sutras and certain when Buddha talk. That's how you can help. This is how you can benefit. And so with those lists, Rinpoche, so Lama Tsongkhapa, so then the author here, he used the quotations from Lama Tsongkhapas, so Lama Tsongkhapa said, ethical contact is water to clean away the stain of non-virtues. So it's like water. When there's a dirt, you use the water to clean the dirt. In the same way, the ethical contact or the discipline is like the water that cleans the non-virtuous actions, that cleans unwholesome, unhealthy misdeeds. Also, it's like moonlight to cool the heat of afflictions. So it is like moonlight. So again, in the daytime, when the sun is there, there is heat. And as night falls, and then when the moon comes, then it cools down. So normally, poem, I think in a poem there is, I don't know whether actually moon does have really healing, cooling effect or not. I'm not sure. Maybe there is. But I think it might also be just a more poem way of in the poem that you find in. So it is the cooling energies, So therefore, it's like that moonlight which has the cooling energies to cool the heat of afflicting emotion, disturbing emotions, And because when you talk about even with the first one, we talk about, restraining or avoiding from having a greediness, ill will feelings of anger, hatred, resentment, and so forth, and wrong views. And so when you practice the moral ethical discipline, then you cool down the heat of all of those afflictive emotions. When you practice the moral discipline, that is the opposite of that. When you practice contentment, then it cools down the heat of the greediness, attachments. When you practice loving kindness, compassion, it cools down the heat of anger, hatred, resentment, grudges. When you practice the moral discipline of avoiding the wrong view, then again it cools down the heat of on the right view, then it cools down the heat of the wrong views and so forth. So that's why it's like moonlight that cools the heat of affliction. radiance towering like a mountain in the midst of sentient beings, you know. So it's like the mountains, big mountains, you know. Storms comes and goes, big storm comes and goes, but it doesn't kind of move the mountains, you know. All different storms comes, wind, rain, snows, heat, that's all come, but the mountain remain very strong, unmoved. In the same way, when you are strong practice of moral discipline, then even you live around people, sentient beings who are not so ethical, who are so not moral, who are not so kind and compassionate, their attitude, their actions, their behavior wouldn't influence you. You will be unshakable like mountains. Even everyone try to say, you know, it's okay to kill. Even everything in society, even everyone feel killing is not a big deal. Stealing is not a big deal. Even everyone seems to be convinced with that. You will not be affected by such belief or such attitude. You will be very strong like the mountains, you know, unmoved by those negativities. So that is because your practice of moral ethical discipline is very strong, very strong. You have very strong foundations of that. The peaceful force to unite humankind. Yeah, you know, when you avoid hurting and harming someone, you know, when you avoid hurting and harming anyone through your three doors, body, speech, and mind, and not only you try to avoid hurting and harming them, but instead you try to help them through the practice of saving life, by giving, practicing generosity, you know, by being truthful and faithful, by being, you know, honest and truthful, by using kind, compassionate, gentle speech, by trying to bring them harmonies, engaging something inspiring, beneficial speech, and with a sense of contentment instead of feeling jealousy and wanting their things to happen to me, but being happy with their success, their job, but you are being content with yourself, and then having loving kindness, compassion. When you practice in that, of course, you know, you become the powerful force, you know, peaceful powerful force to unite a humankind. Not only humankind, sentient beings, you know, sentient beings, you know. And Buddha was, you know, that force, you know, and because of those practices, you know. Knowing this, so through studying, reflecting, contemplating that, and then through that, knowing this, spiritual practitioners guard it. So those moral discipline, and such as our different precepts, commitments, vows that we have taken, you know, whether it's a Pratimosha vows or precept, whether it's a Bodhisa vows or precept, whether it's a tantric vow or precepts, you know, or commitment, all of them, and because those are the you know, part of that moral ethical practice, you know. And the moral ethical practice is protect yourself and protect others. We have to understand that, you know. Just like even in ordinary wire rules made, traffic rules, is to protect the driver and protect others. You know, if there is no rules, there will be more likely to have more accident. And so therefore the rules are created, to protect internal traffic, to protect the driver themselves and to protect the other passengers, whether in that car or other cars. Same way, all these, the vows, the rules, regulations are created or is there in order to protect the practitioner themselves and to protect others. Otherwise, the practitioner could be harmful and hurtful to others. And because of those practice, they, refrain from engaging in something that is hurtful and harmful. And so that it is to, we have to understand, no, it is to protect yourself and protect others. As they would their very eyes, So of course we will try to protect our eyes. If you are going to a forest or some things, you will make sure that the branches will not freak on your eyes because you regard this so precious and you don't want to damage your eye. You don't want to lose your eyesight. You will protect very much. You pay attention. And so here is saying, when someone understands the value of those moral, ethical discipline, they will try to protect even more than that you will protect your eyes, even more than you will protect your own life. Because even we lose eyesight, is very unfortunate and it is very sad and painful, but it is not everything is lost. Even if you lose your one lifetime, from Buddhist point of view, we talk of many lifetimes, it's unfortunate and painful, sad, and all of that, but still is. But when you lose your moral and ethical discipline and practice, then you lose. In one of the Vinaya, Buddha said, then you lose for many lifetimes the very soul or the very heart of the practice. And so therefore that is how one should so that is the moral discipline, okay. In relation to that, so that is in this in this text, that is kind of as I mentioned before, how each of those practice support the next practice. And when you have strong practice with generosity, it helps you to have more stronger level of moral discipline. And when you have strong practice of moral discipline, then it helps the next practice, the practice of patience. Again, when you have strong practice of generosity through training your mind in giving and not holding with miserliness, stinginess, so you learn to, so you don't have much strong grasping and clinging to the objects when you are good at practice of generosity, having training that way. And when you don't have strong clinging, grasping, and stinginess, holding too tightly to the objects, you have less attachments, less attachments, less desire to the objects. And when you have less attachment, less desire to objects, then, it helps you to practice your moral discipline better. A lot of time, why we take life of others, whether we take directly or we kind of, what do you call, we contribute indirectly, And basically attachment, because we're attached to the flavor of the meat. Sometimes attachment, animals are killed because they're attached to the skin, fur, sometimes for different part of that, and sometimes the meat, So again, if you don't have strong attachments to all of that, then you are more likely to able to stop, either killing yourself directly or contributing indirectly towards that. Same with stealing. Why do we steal? Most time we steal because we're attached to that object that we are trying to steal. And so therefore, when you have that strong practice of training in generosity, then it helps your practice of moral discipline. And when you have strong practice of moral discipline, then it will also have the practice of the patience. Then even when someone is unkind to you, when someone is even trying to hurt you or harm you, you will not respond with ill will feelings. At the moment when someone is nasty to you, someone is unkind to you, it doesn't have to be you, your family, your friends, or someone else, someone who is vulnerable ones. So when you see someone being, cruel, abusive, whatever, to anyone, then it makes you upset. And with that upset, then you started to have this harsh feeling, ill will feelings, of wanting to, how to respond back in a negative way, And when we do that, then we lose the patience, But when you have strong practice of moral discipline, and when you have less of those ill will feeling, instead, love and compassion, then even someone is, abusive, harmful to anyone, you don't have to respond with the harsh feelings, ill will feeling. And thereby, you will be able to practice the patience. The patience is state of mind, And so, so that is one thing, how, and in generally, in Chandrakirti's middle way, he also explains, and again, among those 6 perfections, early ones are more easy to practice than the next ones. So generosity is more easy to practice than moral discipline, as well in that, also in that sequences, why that is, the teaching was giving in one way, in that sequence as well. And in other ways, how each of earlier practice support the next practice. And also the moral discipline is the very foundation, regardless which spiritual tradition you follow in Buddhism, whether you follow Theravada traditions, whether you follow Sutra Mahayana traditions, or whether you follow Tantric Mahayana traditions, the moral discipline is the very root, very foundations of all the path. Without strong foundation of moral discipline, they say it's hard to develop shamatha. Without shamatha, there is no special insight. So in even Theravada traditions, the main training, the path is the practice of those 3 training: moral discipline, meditative concentration, and special insight. And it all starts from this very foundation of moral discipline. And same in the Mahayana, Sutra traditions. That is same, same. And also in Vajrayana Tantra, it says, without keeping all this samaya, the commitments, the precepts, the vows, which are part of moral discipline, there's no way that you can actualize, the tantric path of generation stage and completion stage. On the other hand, if you are able to keep all these samaya commitments, vows purely, even you cannot have a good practice in terms of visualization and all others, but within 16 lifetime, you will make a big progress. So again, in all this teaching, there is very strongly mentioned and emphasized the moral discipline or moral ethical contact is very, very important and very foundations for all our spiritual realizations and spiritual growth on the path. So, yeah. So yeah, I think maybe that is all. Maybe I would say. Any questions? I can take a couple of questions if there is.
Questions in the Gompa? No. Oh, Mark.
I've been struggling for months now because an auto mechanic ripped me off for $400 or $500. And I wanted to go to war with this guy and leave messages on all online so that people would know that he was a problem and would not go to his shop. But I kept not doing that. And inside I started going, well, it's okay for me to let other people know that this is a dangerous situation, but I can't tell them that until I can say it without becoming enraged and seeking vengeance. And I keep waiting and waiting and waiting for it to happen. And it could be years. It could take me years.
I think it's good. I think your approach is the right approach. Of course, as you mentioned, we have to speak up so that they don't take advantage of others. But also, it's important to watch our mind and from what state of mind is coming. If you are trying to do with, as you said, rage, then we will be biased in information that we provide. It will not be unbiased because it comes from biased mind. Anger is biased mind. And when it comes from that anger, biased mind, even though we feel I'm not being biased, I'm not partial, I'm trying to just write reality and the fact, what I experienced. But when there is a biased mind, you wouldn't be able to see clearly what you are writing is really the fact, reality, or there is a bias in that. And when we act in such biased way, and then again, how helpful it is, we don't know. So personally, I think, and yeah, it's there.
Okay,
Gil.
You mentioned right view, and then you mentioned the law of cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain a little more about what right view is?
Mm-hmm.
Please, thank you.
Law of cause and effect is when certain cause and condition come together, it leads to certain result. Okay, and who made that? Nobody made that. It is the way it is. You know, when you plant a seed, and then when you water it, when there is, you know, all other conditions that need for that to grow, the seed, the waters, you know, whatever other condition, maybe the light, the heat, you know, the space, you know, right soil, different things. When all these conditions come to the cause condition come together, and then, you know, when we talk about cause and condition here, in this case, just to give that example, the seed can be known as the cause, and then all other, the soil, the water, the heat, the light, all of that can be understood as conditions. But again, you know, in Buddhist studies, the way they use cause and conditions, it depends on context. Sometimes it's same. It doesn't mean, it means same cause and conditions. Sometimes it means the cause means the substantial, that something turn into something, and conditions is something that support to that. So again, we have to understand in context, you know, cause and condition. In some cases, it is just synonymous. Cause means condition, condition means cause. But sometimes when you use cause and condition in that cases, then in this case, the seed will be the cause and then condition with all others. So when all these come together, then the plants grow, whatever the plant it is. Even if you wish them not to grow, it will grow. You cannot stop from growing. You know? And when all these conditions are not there, it doesn't grow. Even if you wish them to grow, it doesn't grow. And so therefore, depending on the cause and condition, then certain result is produced. And that is not only in external world, that is same in our internal world. You know, when we act in certain way, physically, verbally, and mentally, you know, and then it produces particular result from that.
My understanding of the Noble Eightfold Path and Right View is not the law of cause and effect. Is that your view, that the right view is the law of cause and effect?
There is two right view. Okay. The term mountain right view and super mountain right views. Mountain right view, law of cause and effect. The wisdom, you know, the view of law of cause and effect. And super mountain right view is the selflessness, emptiness. And so again, and that you can see that in explanation of Four Noble Truth. You can see that in 12 link as well. And so therefore, of course, normally when we talk about right view, most time we're referring to the emptiness, selflessness, but it doesn't always, you know, it depends also on context. So again, in Tibetan and Jigdenbe Tawa, Jigdenbe Yang Tabe Tawa, Jigdenbe Yang Tabe, Jigdenbe Yang. So ordinary or mundane right view and not ordinary super mundane right view. So there is that too. And also again, when we talk about 10 non-virtuous actions, and opposite of that is again, it can be also more than that, you know. The wrong view in that case is, the belief that there is no three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sanghas. And the right view for that will be the understanding of that there is Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha existing of that, and so on. So again, we have to be very we have to understand the context. A lot of time we don't look context, and then we get caught up in the word. And because the same word can mean different things in different contexts. Especially in Buddhism, when you study, there are so many different ways of interpreting it according to a different school of thoughts. And so we might be using same word, but each school of thought might have different understanding or meaning of that word. So again, we have to understand that sometimes you are debating something on the word, but what is the meaning of word? What your understanding, what understanding of mine is different. And so then it's like attachment. That is why when we talk about Buddhism, that is why sometimes when I use attachment, I have to give explanation what it means in Buddhist terms. Because normally, in psychology point of view, the attachment that the child need the attachment, the mothers need attachment for the growth of the child, physical growth, brain and emotional, all of that. That attachment is a positive, affections, love. We don't say that is negative. But when in Buddhism, when we talk about attachment and negative, we are describing some different emotions. So we are using same word, but we are describing two different emotions. And so I think those are the things we have to be aware of that, different contexts, and as well as how it is used differently in different contexts.
Geshe Mary says, thank you for the incredible teachings. You've given us plenty of advice. She would like to know, is there any special advice or request you have for us while you are away?
Well, I'm gone. When I come, you all become enlightened. Yeah. So, advice. So, yeah, the Shankar was asking, because I think people didn't hear, was it predictions or advice? So unfortunately, it's not a predictions. And so, no, the same thing. I don't have any special advice, same advice that I've given in the past. You continue to study, practice, and as I continue to, that is something that I always says, we have different teachers coming, visitings, or here and there, and you have to take opportunity to studies with all the teachers, and with different teachers, they might have different way of presenting it. Even sometimes the term they might use might be different. And sometimes the example might be different. Sometimes the presentation might be slightly different. And sometimes that you struggle with one particular teacher to understand or have clarity, another teacher's slightly different presentation can clarify that it has not been clarified before, or or that you could get a more slightly different, deeper meanings or slightly different meanings. So there is always of that. So that is why I always continue to studies. And again, study is important, but if you don't go beyond that, then again it doesn't serve the purpose. I said, then it is like you have all the informations. It's like a Google dictionary. If you look Google, then it is there. but it doesn't really change your mind, doesn't transform your mind. So once you study what you have learned, then you have to put in the practice. Contemplate, meditate, and practice as much as possible. Of course, it's going to take time, effort, that we don't expect, to become enlightened in very short time, or even bodhisattva in very short times, But if we continue to contemplate meditation practice, then definitely, as one of the Katamba masters says, when you create all the cause and conditions, if you keep on creating the cause and condition, even you think the realization will not arise, it feels like it's beyond my reach for 100 years. I might not be able to have this realization for 100 years. But if you keep on creating cause and condition, because it's impermanent, it will happen. Even you believe that it will not happen, it will happen. Because you have created the cause and condition for that to happen. And so therefore, that is what we continue to do, and and then practice meditation is important. And as I mentioned a few times, the very things that we are discussing here, we are discussing how to meditate, how to practice. So if we think there is a different meditation, different practice than what we are discussing there, then we have misunderstood. There isn't separate kind of meditation or practice that is different than what we have discussed. The only thing is that what we have discussed in meditation, you take time to reflect, contemplate on what we have just talked about it, so that you can have those feelings, emotions, arisings. Here we don't have that time. We just talk, discuss, and not spending the time to go with each of those points and take time to contemplate, reflect on those points, and trying to feel those feelings, and same with practice. And so, so like, if someone comes to how to meditate on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, to me, I don't have anything more than what we discussed last time when we went through it. The point is you take the time to go through each point and try to contemplate and feel it, and that is the thing. And so that is what I want people to, as Lamrim Tsongkhapa mentioned in Lamrim Temo, Sherab Goba Imbes. Shebe Goba and Sheba Imbes, yeah. He said, very purpose of studying and understanding intellectually, very purpose of studying and understanding intellectually is to put into the practice. The very purpose of studying is to really put into the practice. If you don't put into the practice, then the purpose of studying doesn't serve the point. As I mentioned, then it is just like a Google. You have all the informations. What is the definition of bodhicitta? What are how to meditate at this point, this point, this point? What is the result of this practice? What is the experience of this practice? All the information, but in terms of transforming your mind, changing your mind, your attitude, there's nothing. And that is because we are just collecting the informations. We need to collect the information first, but then once you collect the information to study, then you have to apply into practice and meditation to see the result. And so I think so that would be my advice. Yeah. So doing your own practice meditations in a group. I think there is a Lamrim meditation group. You can come and do that, or you can do yourself. Of course, it is always good if you do in a group and support each others. Yeah. Okay. Then dedications.
Dedication prayers. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May the blind see form. May the timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Gangri Shinkam dear and Bande Malu Shuwen Chanre Sigwan Tansin Gyatso Yi Shabe Site Pardu Tangyur Chi.
We also dedicate the virtues for the quick and swift return of the Lama Sovereign Buddhist. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. And hope to see you in 6 months, in the end of May, June.
And we're going to do a Thanksgiving mandala. And afterwards, we can offer a kata to Geshe.
We can do the short one. Short do, you can do the short Sashi
Okay. Sajipoki Shikshu
Oh.
Thank you, Geshe. Safe travel.